Welcome to the Wide for the Win wide stream, coming to you live from the Wide for the Win Facebook and YouTube channels. Alessandra, welcome to the wide stream.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and I love Wide for the Win, and I love always talking books and talking, marketing in this industry, and I love talking to you, Mark. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it was a good excuse for us to chat again.
Yeah.
Let's for anyone who is not familiar with you, so you got your start in romance and suspense. Was it romance first, suspense, or was it both? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because I was a suspense reader, like literally never read a romance book until I read 50 Shades of Grey. But when I sat down to write, 2012 is when I wrote my first book, like a romance came out. Like I was not expecting that. I was as surprised as anybody, but that's what came out. And then it took off. And then I wrote another one and another one. And then I had like 20 romance books out. And so I was officially a romance author, but I always wanted to move to suspense. And I really moved full-time to suspense 4 years ago. So I write romance under Alessandra and suspense under A.R. Torre.
Of course. And that way you keep the same last name. So the super fans who do, and there's a lot of people who read cross genre. So they may, do you have a lot of fans that cross over?
I have a lot that cross from romance to suspense. I don't have a ton that cross from suspense to romance. It's kind of mostly a one-way street. But that could also be because a lot of my suspense readers are male, and romance is a more female dominated industry. Right. So I'm not sure if that's it or
snobbery. I mean, it's really
100%. It could be snobby. I will tell you, I was the biggest romance snob ever until because I hadn't read it. I just assumed you make assumptions. So
no, it's true. It's true. But and romance still being by far, when you look at the sales, by far romance kills all the other genres combined on most platforms. And so romance readers are the most voracious, beautiful, magical readers in the world.
They're so loyal. They're so wonderful. And like you said, they devour books. And, romance authors, not to talk about other genres, but romance authors are some of the smartest women and men in terms of marketing. And it's because they have to be, because the competition is so fierce. And it is such a saturated market that, you have to be on your game in order to succeed.
Well, it's kind of funny. So I pay attention to a lot of different people in the industry. So I'm constantly looking at what Joanna Penn is doing and knowing like futurist wise and new tech and how authors are going to embrace it. What's Joe talking about now? Because that's what the rest of us will be doing in 5 years. But the other thing I've long been doing, and this is from the days I first started following Bella Andre, Barbara Freedy, Tina Folsom, like the holy trinity of the
original
pioneer. Is they were talking about things that then became trends a year or two later. I remember them talking about adult coloring books. Remember that huge
you're thing? Right. Gosh, it's crazy how quickly this industry changes, because that was everything for a while.
Yeah, it was. And it's funny when they mentioned it. I remember we were at Book Expo America, we're having lunch, and they mentioned adult coloring books, and I was thinking adult is in terms of erotic. Not adult. I was like, well, that's just a lot of flesh tone.
Which there were some adult coloring books also, but yes, for the most part, everyone I saw was tame. But
So before we went live, we were chatting and just remembering, like, there's just so many different silos in the indie author industry alone of people who have different sets of knowledge and stuff like that. So one of the other things you've done is you've taken your success as an author and then you've tried to give that back to the community. So when did you first create InkersCon?
InkersCon was created, it was created in 2018. We launched our first conference in 2019. And I kind of fell into that I started teaching online courses in like 2017.
Right.
And that was born out of really, when I started in 2012, there was no resources. There weren't online courses. There weren't really books. There was a lot of books on like nonfiction book marketing, but not a lot of books on fiction marketing. And we didn't have, like, when I started, like, Facebook ads were not a thing. AMS ads weren't a thing unless you bought like a $17,000 package. So it was just like, I bought a press release for my first book because I had all this money it was making. I didn't know how to reach people. Like, I remember, like, talking to the New York Times about putting like an ad in there, and it was like, you know, it was just, we just didn't know how to market your book, and I didn't
Right.
know how to write a book. I was a self-taught author that was really just figuring things out, and it was like, if I ever figure out this thing, like I want to make like a writing for dummies or marketing for dummies, or, you know, like a for
Yeah.
dummies series. And that was really my online courses that I launched. But I quickly learned like how little I knew. Like I knew my process and I knew what worked for me, but I wanted to know like what, you know, XYZ was doing, who was like killing it over there in audiobooks, you know, or what this person was doing, who was a fantastic outliner, you know. So I was trying to find out kind of everyone else and what they were doing. And that was when kind of this idea, it was originally going to be a summit, like an online summit where a bunch of different people came in and talked about different things. But then I wanted them to all have consistent video. So it was like, let's bring them all together to one place. And then it was like, well, if we're bringing everybody to one place to film it, we might as well let some authors be there, you know, so that the video can have some people in the audience.
Yeah.
And then before we knew it, like
studio audience, right?
yeah, right. And then it was like, well, we should feed them, you know, and then it was like, well, we should do like a cocktail meet and greet. And then it was before it was like, okay, let's just admit it. Like it's a conference.
Right.
So, but it was all built really for online from day one. So from day one, Inkers Con was really just about like recording this information for the online attendees, and the live was just also there because everything else was happening.
Yeah.
Which meant the next year when COVID hit, we were like so far ahead of the game because we were already online, and we were a full scale online conference.
Right.
And you know, and everyone else was just trying to figure that out, like you know, individual logins and user registrations and online events and that sort of thing. And so we were already ahead of the game on that. And so every year Inkers Con has just grown bigger and bigger. And we always have been, both, except for COVID years, both live and digital.
Yeah, of course. See, it's funny. I didn't realize that you originated as digital. I thought it originated as an in-person, but you made it available digitally. I guess because you'd already you may as well have people there and feed them and everything. And so there were two of the things is you were among the very first conferences that allowed people to attend in person and virtually, well beyond us being forced to do that in 2020. The other thing I think I remember from early days of presenting was you made it very structured in a way that there was a lot of consistency. For example, I'm a last minute kind of guy when I put my presentations together, but you guys had like a template.
Oh God, I bet we were.
No, but it was like some of us need that structure to guide us. You know? And that was the first time that I went, wow, they've really got their stuff together. Which was quite early on, and I've seen other conferences begin to adapt some of those things, but that was early on. In 2018, you were already doing those things.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We are very, I don't want to say that we're hard on our speakers, but we do when we reach out to speakers, and we have been able to get more and more demanding as the years have gone by, because we have more of a reputation, you know. But we make it very clear that we our biggest thing is actionable content. Like we don't want fluff presentations, and we don't want a presentation that just sells something. But we want actionable content, and the more examples and real life information, the more transparent that our speakers can be, the better. Because that's what I want as an author. Like I want to know, I don't want to know that this caused someone's sales to go up by 25% and they were only selling 8 books a year. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I want to see.
I doubled my sales. I went from 2 to 4.
I'm like, oh great, I'm writing this down. Later I find out they sold 14 books. You know. So as much as they're comfortable sharing, and as much transparency as they can, but actionable, you know, information is what we really want. And Inkers Con has 4 pillars. So business. We've always been very, very business focused. So business, advertising, marketing, and craft. So those are the 4 areas that the presentation business, advertising.
Marketing is separate from advertising. I want to dig into that a little bit, and then craft.
And then craft. Yeah.
So you separated them. A lot of people put the 2 together. What was the purpose behind that?
Yeah, we see marketing and advertising as being very different. So our advertising classes are really focused on paid advertising on specific platforms or or sometimes it's across platforms, but it'll be like a class that's focused on like advertising strategy, you know what I mean? Or, you know, or uh, pre-order advertising tactics and platforms, you know, or that sort of thing. Where marketing is much more brand, oftentimes we put into business, but it's much more just about reader communities, signings, social media, newsletter marketing, all of that sort of just constant, often evergreen efforts that aren't like pay-per-click. That's really kind of where we differentiate, and oftentimes don't cost. A lot of times marketing efforts cost money, but for the most part, a lot of times it's more just you know, strengthening the connection to your readers, finding new readers, growing your brand, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay. And that's a good distinction to have. I imagine, you know, as a suspense author as well, when you put thrillers and mystery all together and like all in one big jumble, as opposed to realizing that there's a lot of very specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing that you saying that makes me think of is the other thing that's unique about InkersCon is that we are all adult fiction genres, not adult like steamy,
Yeah.
but adult, not children, not middle grades,
Okay.
but adult fiction. And that was also something that is unique about us. I think it has hurt our sales on one side because if someone can only go to one conference, a lot of times they want their niche conference,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes
Of
perfect
course.
sense. For me as an author, I kind of knew everything we were doing in romance. Like I wanted to know what, you know, like somebody who was killing it in, you know, I don't know, like women's fiction was doing so that I could kind of borrow from them.
Right. Okay. And so one of the things that well, so coming up, so we're recording this for anyone who's watching this in the future. Hello, people in the future. Is we're recording this on the 24th of May, a celebratory day here in Canada. If anyone's a Rush fan, they'll know what the 24th of May is all about. But I digress. But coming up in June is the in-person plus virtual, and then there's a full virtual in July. Can you explain what the difference is between those two?
Yeah. So anyone who attends the live conference, which is happening just very soon, June 7th through 9th, they also get access to the digital conference. So the live conference is very similar to any live conference you've been to. You know, it has networking, it has discussions, it has presentations. But then the entire time our videographers are recording the presentations. And then we have like a month, 5-6 weeks where we edit and package all of those videos and we prepare all of the online content. We have transcripts, we have closed captioning, and then we release it mid-July to the digital
Wow.
attendees. And then digital attendees have 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks. It almost ends up being like 16 or 17 days with the weekends. We have 2 weeks that's our digital conference. And so those attendees actually get access for 6 years, but we have 2 weeks of activities. And and every day of those 2 weeks, we have things going on. We have oftentimes hundreds of what we call roundtables, which are attendee led. Any attendee can say, hey, I want to meet other Australian authors. And they set up a roundtable for that, which they meet on
Oh,
Zoom for 30 to 45 minutes typically. And they, you know, they can set it up. Anyone can sign up who wants to participate. A lot of times we also have teaching roundtables where someone's like, I want to share my, you know, plot method or something like that. And they post a description. Anybody can join in. And those happen literally like some are at 3 a.m, depending on the time zone of
right.
like if they're all Irish authors or whatever it is. To, you know, to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we have writing sprints almost every day that attendees can join in. We have representatives from different companies come in and do seminars or product demos or Q&As. And so it's just nonstop. And then we have interviews with best-selling authors. And then we have our like featured roundtables, which are almost like mini presentations followed by a Q&A. And
Oh,
those are
wow.
vetted by us and those are kind of hosted by our team and moderated. So it's, when I say there's 100 events, there's easily 100 events that happen in those 2 weeks. And some digital attendees don't participate in any of them. They just want the 24 presentations and
Yep.
that's it. And other attendees are at, I mean, I think they take off work for 2 weeks. I don't know, but they're at everything. And it is, you and I were talking about this. It's got to be a lot of information overload, but it's what they look forward to every year.
Well, one of the things I love about that is, so there's somebody who attends in June.
Mhm.
Sometimes you go to a conference and you're taking the information, and I don't know. I mean, I was at a presentation in Toronto recently with Becca Simon. I think I took 6 pages of notes. I
Yeah.
could have taken 12, but I
Yeah.
only took 6. And so one of the things is like, well, seeing the same presentation again
Mhm.
in a month later in a different mind space, because I'm at home, I'm comfortable. I'm not in a
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an introvert, so in a
Yeah.
crowd I'm a little bit,
Yeah.
not on my game all the time. I fake it really well, but
You do fake it really well, I gotta say. Yeah.
well, I'm an omnivert, so I can play the role if need be. It's just a role I get to play. Yeah. But I love that fact that the people who've attended in person can benefit again a month later. But then the people, a much larger group of people from
Mhm.
around the world who don't have to be, in central time zone or where
Yeah.
that's, they can do that. But here's the thing I love, and I just want to reiterate this, and I wasn't even thinking of that, is you're not just taking your pre-recorded stuff and you're sticking it up online.
Mhm.
You're adding value to it. You're adding all of the extras to it,
Yeah.
and you're making it interactive. So it's
Mhm.
like a fresh conference again.
Yeah.
Uh, I love that. That is really amazing. So the people can still get a hold of tickets for either, or is the in person one already
Yeah,
sold
so
out?
no, in person, we don't have a lot of tickets left, but we do have some tickets left. It's a smaller conference. We limit tickets to 200. So
Oh,
it is a more intimate conference. It's not like these giant like 20 books. I mean, you're not going to get
yeah,
lost. You're going to know almost everybody by the
right,
time you leave. I mean, it's small. And and one of the things that I hated at conferences was like, oh, there's two things going on at the same time that I want to see. And
yeah,
so it is much more of a more relaxed feel, because you don't have to, if you're not in the presentation watching it, you know that you will be able to still get that information.
right,
So a lot of times, because we do have two tracks going on at the same time.
yeah,
Um, but that's another thing. Like, for example, last year we had a lot of Kickstarter content,
right,
and this
yeah,
year and direct sales. And I knew that I wasn't going to start a direct sales store this year, but it is something that I think I will look into once I have more bandwidth. And
right,
so for me as an attendee, I was like, what I love about it, or I'm not interested in self-pubbing foreign translations right now, but in 2 or 3 years, I might be ready to,
right,
and
yeah, yeah,
so tickets are available. We're in early registration pricing right now for digital through the end of this month, through June 1st.
right.
Um, and we have a lot of attendees who also are still buying tickets to like 2020. You know what I mean? Because they'll watch like
Oh yeah, they still have access. Yeah,
they could still, yeah. So we have a lot of times people purchase like this year's ticket, and then they'll really love a speaker, and then they'll go and they're like, what other years did this speaker speak? And then they go back and they see,
huh.
oh, they spoke in 2022. They can buy discounted access for the older years. And a lot of times people do that as well.
I love that. And this, so the in person, where is that taking place?
That's in Dallas.
In
It's
Dallas.
in Plano, Texas, actually. So just outside of Dallas.
Okay,
And yeah, again, June 7th through 9th.
June 7th through
Probably
9th.
right in the heat of Dallas, so we'll
Yeah,
see.
it's
Yeah.
not warm at all in
Well, we're
Dallas
not
that time of
outside,
year.
so it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just a couple things. So I saw Elaine, must be a fellow Rush fan, had called out Lakeside Park. I was referencing that Rush song. It's not too far from where I live. It's about an hour and a half drive near St. Catharines, Port Hope area. That's just a reference. Anyways, so we were talking about this because there's so much content, and well, I'm going to step back for a second. It's very intimate with only 200 people. So
Yeah,
chances are, if you're at that in-person event, if you get overwhelmed at a Author Nation or 20 books,
yeah,
kind of huge event where there's thousands of people, it's not as scary. Just
yeah,
so folks know,
yeah.
that's how I got used to speaking in front of bigger and bigger groups and
Mhm,
and bigger and bigger conferences, because I started at the really small ones, and so it was
mhm.
less. It was like getting into the shallow end first, and then
Yeah,
and then learning how to swim. But that's another thing. If going with a water analogy,
mhm,
is there's going to be a fire hose of information, even with two tracks. There's going to be a ton of information
mhm.
that's happening. And so one of the things I always worry about is authors spend all this time and energy. They get their fresh notebooks or whatever they're bringing to take the notes and stuff like that, and they make again, like I said, pages and pages of notes. I think at this Toronto conference I was at a few weeks ago, I probably took about 18 pages of notes. And I've only gone over some of them once, and I haven't even, it's been a month, and I haven't gone, or not quite a month, but I haven't gone back to them. There's some overwhelm that can happen, and so
Yeah.
what I was curious about is, having done many of these yourself as an attendee, as an organizer, what do you recommend? How do you deal with that fire hose of information? And that's where the water analogy overlaps.
Yeah, you connected it. Yeah, you made the connection. So I do two things, and that is, and both of these things are done prior to going to the conference. And the first thing I do is I look at my business plan or refresh it. And a lot of authors don't even write a business plan. So if you have never written a business plan, I have a video, I'm sure on YouTube somewhere, that talks about like an author's business plan and how you can write one in like 15 minutes. Like we're not talking about like financial projections or those sort of things. You don't have to catalog all of your assets as books, but at bare minimum, if you can say kind of, what are my goals for this year, and quantify those goals, and what are my strategies to reach those goals, and really just sit down and kind of spend ideally a few hours doing a deep dive into kind of where your current strengths are in your career and where your weaknesses are. And with those, and that's sort of a separate exercise. A lot of times I do like a Venn diagram type thing where it's like, okay.
That looked like a cocktail napkin.
I love Venn diagrams, I gotta say. Where like,
no, I love them too.
Let's see if I can do it. Like, this is everything I'm good at. And that this is everything I'm good at. And this is everything I love doing. Right. And where do those interact? And then I do the same thing for bad things. Like, this is everything I hate doing. And this is everything I'm bad at. And kind of where do those interact? And if there's a part of this industry that you don't like doing and you stink at, like 100% find a way to take that off your plate or outsource it. You know what I mean? Like, it's entirely possible. A lot of times we have this list of like a gazillion things that we think we have to be successful. And a lot of times you don't, you know what I mean? A lot of times you can just cross something off your list and it will not affect your career whatsoever. But also, like, what do you really love doing? And what are you good at? What is it that you do better than? And it might be like writing dialogue, or it might be like newsletters, or something like that. And that's where you should be spending the bulk of your time. And if you hate social media and you stink at it, like, cross it off the list. Like, post on all your social media that if someone's interested, follow your newsletter. You know what I mean? And the end. But if I know, like, okay, this year I've got to figure out a way to diversify my money, and I've got to figure out a way to write more books to increase my productivity. And the third thing that I, is, whatever your third goal is, it might be like having a consistent newsletter. But whatever those three goals are, or two or three goals, like, figuring that out before you go there. So that way, when you look at the agenda, you say, okay, which of these classes falls under this? And you might be tempted by the shiny class that is, Kickstarter campaigns, but does that fit into your goals? I mean, like, so because it's not more information in everything isn't always the solution. You know what I mean? So it's really like saying, okay, this is what, and maybe your goals for that event are, and make little goals for that like event. Like, I want to meet 5 new author friends in my genre, or I want to speak to, the direct sales companies, or, the companies that are going to be present, so that I can understand more about what's available, or whatever it is. But if you kind of go in there with like, okay, this is what I want out of this, and this is what I want for my career, and be strategic in where you put your time at that conference and the connections that you make, like, that helps. And it's great to also learn and sit there by the water cooler and have conversations and have a page of notes. But don't feel like you have to, just because you hear about this author that's killing it in XYZ, that you need to rechange your entire strategy, because that might not be something that you're good at, or that you enjoy, or that where your audience is.
Yeah. Elaine just commented that that's invaluable advice. Thank you. And I'm saying, yes, thank you. Why don't I do this? I got to make a note of that. I love that. I love going into it. Because again, you look at the tracks, you look at the presentations, and you can get excited and go, yay, Kickstarter. yeah, not my cup of tea. It's not on my list. I want to
Yeah.
focus on direct sales. I know Kickstarter can be a path for
Mhm.
direct sales, but so does the direct sales presentation or the
Yeah.
Kickstarter presentation, even though the Kickstarter is exciting because I've heard so many great things about it, I can look at it and say, well, this more aligns with. But then again, here's the beauty:
You
I
can always
can
walk
watch
away.
that in a month or 2 months,
That's
right?
yeah.
It's available
That's the
for 6 years.
excuse I need. Like, this
Yeah,
isn't going to be the only time I will ever be able to access this information. Like, I
yeah,
I know that I can access it later, and that to me took like a huge just
yeah,
weight off of my shoulders. Um, and and I always encourage authors that one of their goals, like each year, is just to improve their craft, like improve their
yeah.
product. Whether that's packaging but ideally the craft classes are always the lightest attended, and it hurts my soul.
Oh,
But I'm guilty of it too, like it's like,
yeah.
"Ooh, this class, make more money," or strengthen your characters. It's like, okay, well, everybody runs to the make more money door. But
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. So I've been a active participant in Superstars writing seminars that my friend Kevin J. Anderson and company started up years ago, and I've been going. They can't get rid of me. Probably 12 years now, and it started off as a business only because no one was talking about the business of writing and publishing 12 years ago. It was
uh-huh.
mostly craft and how to sell to an agent and stuff like that. So this was like how to understand the business and the landscape, and it was even contracts and stuff. So it does have a crossover.
Wait,
But
and
then
it's
they
called
introduced
Superstars what?
Superstars writing seminars,
Okay,
and it takes place in Colorado Springs in February every
okay.
year. And it's just one that I love. And it did start off really small. I think the first one was 100 people. So it's now, I think they capped it at 400 because they want to
Yeah,
keep it more intimate.
that's a good size. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things they did add was they added a craft day that they tacked on the Wednesday. So it's like Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They tacked on a craft day for people who want craft because there's a lot of really great craft. And then that way, that one day, and the craft workshops tend to be 2 hours. So you actually have a chance to participate and fill things out and
Yeah,
get stuff
dive in
done.
deeper.
Yeah. But I love one of the other approaches I've taken when I've gone to a conference is not so okay at Anchors Con, everything is recorded. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that. But sometimes when I go, so Superstars is an example. There's 5 different rooms, and you look and say, well, these rooms are recorded, and there will be an audio of it later,
Yeah.
but these ones aren't. And so sometimes the I choose one over the other because I know, well, I can always listen to that one at a future date, and I can't listen to this one in the future. The
Yeah.
other thing I always make a note of is, do I have specific questions on this topic that I may be able to ask?
Yeah.
If
That's a good
there's
point.
a
Mhm.
Q&A session that may be important for me, like I need to be there because I want to ask it. And then the one of the other strategies I've used, I remember doing this with Matt Buckman at NINC a couple years. We would sit down, look at the schedule together, and we would
Like, divvy it
decide.
up.
Yeah, we'd split it up, and then we would give each other our notes. So that I actually had to attend to taking better notes because it wasn't just for me and my chicken scratch. I had to make something
That's
somewhat more
good.
legible. I
Yeah.
mean, Matt was
There's some
typing.
accountability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that allowed me to focus more on the content because I wanted to make sure I captured not just the things I thought were good, but the things that I thought he might also like. So I took better notes, which is so. Those are just a couple other strategies that I've used.
I love that. Yeah, I really like that. And something also just advice I always give to people when they're looking at conferences, and I give the same advice to people because we get a lot of emails of like, "Oh, is it right for me?" blah blah. And just this week, we had a ticket come in that was from a children's book author, and I emailed her and was like, you are welcome to come, open arms, like we'd love to have you, but children's books are very different. It's a different distribution, it's a different packaging, it's a different
Yeah,
marketing, different advertising outlets, and you'd really be better served at a conference that is focused on that because
yeah,
and so when you are attending a conference, it could be multi-genre. It could be there are a lot of conferences that are fiction and nonfiction, and nonfiction and fiction are just different worlds completely. I mean, in terms of the same thing, marketing, craft, um, oftentimes distribution. So if you are an author who's looking at a conference, look at very much if it's fiction or non. And then if you're looking at like presentations, look at the speakers and look at like the quality of the speakers and their experience and how qualified they are on the topics, because your speakers are, I mean, they can make or break a conference
Right.
in
Yeah.
terms of, and you want to, but you might be an author that's literally just going to meet people, and I've had
Mhm.
some people who I've tried to to dissuade from attending Inkers Con because felt like there was probably a better conference out there, and they were like, really, I'm in the Dallas area and I feel lonely. Like I don't know anyone to talk
Mm.
books with or that understand like the struggles of an author. And I know that I don't really write in these genres, but it's still like I want to feel like a real author. I need something to look forward to. And she had a fantastic time. Left with a group of new friends though.
Yeah, I mean, the one I was at in Toronto a few weeks ago, I made a conscious effort because I am not good at approaching people. If people approach me, I'm the warmest person. I will hug anyone. I will welcome
Yeah.
them in, love them to death. But I am not good
But
at approaching.
walking up to a stranger and being like, hi, what are
Yeah,
you doing? Right. Yeah. I'm
I
the
am
same
a
way.
a
Okay.
chicken. I do not do that. And so people come up and talk to me because they recognize me, big
Yeah. You're
scary looking
distinctive.
bald guy, right? I 6'3", so I kind of stand out. So that's easy for me. But I always just think, wow, I mean, that you did something I can't do. Let's go. But I made a point of wanting to go and talk to someone I didn't know and just introduce and learn something about them. And I thought that was really scary for me to do, but it was so rewarding because I accomplished that. And it's like, it's not as scary as, I mean, what are they going to do? Say, get out of
Right.
here, Baldy, right? Like, um, and then there were, I still remember it was at one conference and I was looking forward. It was kind of funny. I was looking forward to the dinner. It was like a nice fancy dinner and stuff like that. And I was having a drink at the bar just before the dinner, just to sit at the bar and have a drink as I do, trying the local craft beer. And a friend I had met at another conference, 6 months earlier, was sitting with another friend of hers at a table, and they waved me over, and I joined them. And then another guy that we didn't know joined us,
Mhm.
and the four of us we just had a blast, just talking books, and we skipped the dinner.
Yeah.
We ended up ordering food from the bar, and then we ended up going to a brewery, and just it was just a really wonderful night. But it was kind of like, I mean, one of them is one of my closest friends now, who I
Mhm.
rarely see in person because I usually only see them at a conference. But it was just this wonderful evening of, the goal of connecting with someone in a
Mhm.
really meaningful way.
Yeah.
That can happen at a conference too.
It can. COVID was a blessing and a curse. I mean, obviously it was, I mean, a
Yeah,
negative,
yeah,
but the only, I mean, there were a couple of good things that came out of it. And one of it was, I think the ability to make friendships across,
yeah.
across the digital interface became a lot easier.
Right.
When our first year at Inkers Con, most people didn't, I mean, a vast majority of the public did not have Zoom accounts, unless they
Yeah.
were in a business atmosphere where they did, virtual meetings, which a lot of meetings didn't. Like there was no reason for like a dental hygienist in New
Yeah.
Jersey to have a Zoom account. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, we were like trying to convince people to get on Zoom, where, fast forward 2 years later and,
Yeah.
everyone and their mother and my great grandmother has a Zoom account. So it has become a lot easier to make friends and connections and to have like, consistently growing, but it is infinitely harder than, like you said, being able to be face to face and just strike up a conversation and have a discussion and be immersed in a situation where there are authors all around you.
Yeah, yeah. I quite love that. So as we're getting close to the end, you've had experience for a long time as an author and also at conferences and interacting with people. What are some of your, I guess, I don't know, be favorite takeaways or the takeaways that have stuck with you from
Yeah.
various maybe Inkers cons over the years?
I love this question. So I started going to conferences my first year as an author, so 2012. Back then it was like RT.
Yep.
was a big conference that
Oh,
I went
RT was
to.
a great conference.
It was
Yeah.
a great conference. Yeah, I was it actually, anyways, yes, it was a great conference. I have lots of fond memories from RT. I could talk about RT forever. But as far as like major things I've learned recently, I'd say 3 years ago, I watched a presentation by Melanie Harlow. If you ever have a chance to watch Melanie Harlow speak, she's a fantastic businesswoman and fantastic writer. But she really understands like writing to market, and writing to market was something that I fought tooth and nail. I was like, just like I was snobby about romance, I was snobby about writing to market. And my thought of what writing to market was that like, oh, stepbrother romances are doing hot, I should go write a stepbrother romance. And
Right.
that is not what writing to market is.
Right.
Well, some people consider that that's what it is, but what it really is understanding the market that is likely to buy your story that you're writing, and writing a story that appeals to the elements of that genre, that sub genre.
Right.
And I, as a suspense reader who suddenly was writing romance, I did not know anything about tropes. I didn't know anything about genre expectations. I was just writing stories that came to me that happened to be romance books, and I didn't know my market because I wasn't born of that market. It was much, much easier to me when I switched to suspense, because that was my my crack as a reader, so I
Yeah.
understood that drug and how to deliver it. But learning from her, both Kyla Stone was another. Kyla Stone really taught me that concept. And then Melanie Harlow really taught me like pick a lane and stay in it,
Right.
and I, for the first 10 years of my career, would just write whatever I felt like writing. And what it meant is that my readers had no idea what to expect when they picked up an Alessandra Torre book. It might be, a spicy, dark romance. It might be, a chick flick. It might be a sports romance. I mean, I just
Yeah.
was writing whatever I felt like writing, and I was successful despite myself. But if I had picked a lane early on and not been so stubborn about like, oh, I'm just going to write whatever I feel like, waking up this morning. But Melanie taught me, she was like, she writes what she calls cake. It tastes good. It's lighthearted. It's funny. It brings a
Mm.
smile, And she goes, in some mornings, I don't feel like writing cake. I feel like writing spaghetti. But
Yeah.
I don't, because this is my business, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have 100,000 readers that are expecting their next Melanie Harlow book to be cake. And if I deliver something different than that, then I'm breaking their trust. And the next book that they see that I've come out with, they're going to hesitate to buy.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing that just really a couple years ago really like stuck with me. And from that point forward, A.R. Torre writes domestic suspenses set in California in wealthy environments.
Yeah.
That's what I write, and that's what that's what an A.R. Torre book is from that point on.
Yeah.
I can't control my early A.R. Torre books, but yeah.
But I love that distinction that you made there, which is writing to market is not jumping on a trend. Writing to market is knowing who the market is and giving them what they're there for.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, I love that.
Which who can argue with that? Like,
Yeah.
It's what we should be doing, but a lot of times, but it involves you reading in that genre, you really speaking to those readers, you understanding, and understanding not just that like a single dad book needs to have a single dad, duh, like why do people like single father books, and they like seeing the bond between the father and the child, and they like envisioning, that person becoming part of their family, or whatever the different, I don't know what the elements are, but
Yeah.
it's digging in deeper to understand what it is. What is it about military science fiction that readers love? Because if you come at it and just throw a bunch of stuff and you're missing those core elements, like they aren't going to be happy.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I have to pop up a comment from Dale Roberts from the self-publishing with Dale.
I love Dale.
Saying hi. He's
Dale
joined us
was
a little late.
on speaker. I love it.
Joined us a
Absolutely.
little late, but he's going to go. Yeah, you can always go back and watch. You can watch this
Yes,
at the
yes,
beginning. So good to see you, Dale.
I love Dale. I have to give a quick story about Dale. I
Yeah.
put Dale day one, 9 a.m., the very first slot, which is, of course, the hardest slot
Oh,
because, you're dealing with a totally cold audience. And, and he got up on stage and he just came out of the gun shooting. I mean, he just nailed
oh
it.
yeah.
And at the end, I was like, your energy was so great. You're great. And he was like, put me in that first slot all day long. He said, because I like it. And then it was like also that like you got over it. So you don't have to, then you can relax and enjoy the rest of the conference. So
oh no, I love his energy. My goal, I have a little bucket list item. My bucket list is that, because we're from the Bald Brethren, is that one day somebody may mistake me for Dale. And that'll be a really
you gotta shave the goatee, and then
I'll have to cover it up or something. But there's still, like, it's just a bald white guy, right?
Yeah.
There you go. And then just this comment from Elaine, who said it's been so helpful. Thank you. Have to run.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for being here.
Any last words of wisdom before we close it off?
No, I would just say, if you take away anything from this, I encourage you to sit down and write a business plan. It doesn't need to be in depth or long, but kind of just being able to figure out what you want to focus on this year and what you should be focusing on, and also what you can kind of take off your plate. At least for me, has been like enormously liberating, because also then I keep my little like 3 goals like taped to my mirror in the morning. And so it allows me to also
in the hotel room, you mean? Or
no, like at my house. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just mean like in general year round. I revise and look at my business plan every quarter. And mine is real short. Like, I mean, it's literally like 3 goals and strategies for each. And then a lot of times I'm like, okay, is this something that aligns my goals? Yes or no? And so a lot of times it just kind of gives me the permission to say, like, that's not something I'm going to invest my time and effort in. This isn't part of my path. And then, or I put it on that like maybe list. And then when I do my next quarterly thing, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself permission now to examine, do I want to go into, foreign translations or going back to traditional publishing or whatever else? But I kind of, whenever something flashy comes up, I just kind of stick it on to look at next quarter. And then a lot of times by that time that rolls around, like I've already forgotten it, or my friends have now tried it and failed, and they've like, don't go there. So.
Oh man, awesome. Well, thank you so much
Good.
for that advice. Just another comment,
Dale,
yeah, you're too kind, and he may have to grow his goatee a little bit as well.
Hey.
Anyways, and then again, if he mumbles like I do, then that'll help me confuse us.
That'll help the illusion. Yeah. All right, we got it.
All right, so people can still get. There are some limited tickets available for the InkersCon in person in early June.
Yeah,
June 7th through 9th. In Dallas.
Yep.
And then
July
wide
open.
And that's the 2 weeks extravaganza of all kinds of interact. It's not just online stuff. It's online, but it's interactive online stuff.
Yeah, like over 100 interactive opportunities plus all of the presentations. And if you're busy those 2 weeks, most of the roundtables are recorded, and again, you've got 6 years of access, so you can check it out anytime. And that, though, just so you're aware of the time frame, early registration discount, which is $50, expires June 1st. So if you're interested,
only $50 for the digital conference.
No.
Oh,
no.
Oh, it's $50 off. I was going to say, oh my God, I have to go buy a ticket right now.
Yeah, sorry. It's $199 or $195 now, and it goes up to $249.
It goes up. Okay, so it's $50 cheaper right now.
And we do have 100%. Money back guarantee on digital. So feel free to grab your ticket, enjoy the digital launch. And if it doesn't meet or exceed your expectations, just let us know. Like, we don't send us an email. We'll refund your money. No questions asked.
You're an author. You get it. You understand.
Yeah. So I want you guys to be happy. So thank you, Mark. It was fantastic being here.
Yeah. Great to see you, Alessandra. Thank you so much. And I hope break a spine at the new InkersCons.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to join the Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/wide for the win, or subscribe to us so you don't miss these live videos, these wide streams over at youtube.com/wide for the win.